Hi, everybody. Raina here from Blue Cypress Books, and welcome back to Book Banter. I am super excited about tonight's Book Banter. I'm talking with a few of my favorite and new favorite indie booksellers. You can jump in the comments and say hi at any time. We're going to give you book recommendations. We're going to talk lots of books. We'll be joined by Lauren Richards from Tropes Trifles, that's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Lucile Perkins-Wagel from Wagel. Oh my gosh, I messed it up. Lucile Perkins-Wagel from Blinking Owl Books, which is in Fort Myers, Florida, where I also happen to be at the moment, which is crazy. I am going to just push the button here and join. Ask. Oh my gosh, I'm just tripping all over my words today. It's going to be one of those kind of book banters, evidently. So without further ado, here is Lucy and Lauren. Hi, y'all.
Hi.
Yay, hi. I was like, no, the audio's gone too. What is happening?
Hi.
That was it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank y'all for joining me for Book Banter this evening, first of all. And I want you guys to tell us all a little bit about who you are, how you got into bookselling, how you're connected with your bookstore, and a little bit about your bookstore. So, who wants to go first? We're going to go alphabetically. Lauren.
I'll go. I'm first in the alphabetical by first name.
Yes.
So I'm Lauren.
Yes, my first name.
Yes, I am one of the two co-owners of Tropes and Trifles here in Minneapolis. We are a romance, almost exclusive bookstore. We will be the first one that we know of in the state of Minnesota. We actually have not opened yet. We're opening on April 13th is going to be our grand opening. And so if you follow us on Instagram, you have been seeing our updates of our renovations and things, how things are going. Including shelving the books behind me and making all of those origami dragons. And yeah, so we're super excited to get going. We actually started as a pop-up last summer and fall, and then had a holiday storefront in November and December of last year, and the support was overwhelmingly unhinged. And so here we are.
Yay! Did you before? Did you consider having a brick and mortar storefront before you did the pop up, or was that like not on the table and then you did that and it was overwhelmingly like?
Yes, we had always planned to be a brick and mortar eventually. We kind of weren't sure how it was going to go in terms of, real estate. For anybody who's done this is kind of terrible. It's one of the trickiest things in terms of finding a place that you can actually afford that is in a decent location. We were lucky enough to find a place that's actually not too far within walking distance of my house. So I love that. My dogs. So we were able to get the temporary holiday storefront because somebody else was ending their lease, and then we signed on as a long-term lease here at the beginning of the year, and we've been renovating ever since.
That process sounds daunting as well.
A little bit. We were lucky to have a pretty good contractor through our landlord, and then a great carpenter who came in and built, who assembled and put together all of our shelves and stuff. So, yeah.
Yes. All right, Lucy, tell us about you and your store.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lucy. I am the owner of Blinking Owl Books in Fort Myers, Florida. We are a new and used bookstore. Our focus is on genre fiction and also like body, mind, spirit, spirituality things. But we do have a little bit of everything. And my mom actually opened Blinking Owl in 2020. 2021. Oh goodness, what is 2021? This is going to be our third year. And at the time, I was bookselling at Copperfish Books, which is a new and used bookstore in Punta Gorda, Florida, about an hour away from where we are now. And I last year had just thought about, like, I don't know, the kind of wanting to like see what I could do with my mom's space, because she really liked doing it, but didn't, she has a full-time job. And so she couldn't really like have it open as much as she wanted to. And also, like, as she was doing it and like I was helping her, she was like, I really love books, but like the act of running a bookstore isn't necessarily like I really like, because she also curates our yarn pieces and our vintage and home goods things. And like, that's really more what she loves and enjoys. So, so I bought the store from her, and we are here now. So we new and used books, witchy wares and yarn and stuff. And we have a really good time. But yeah, so it's fun.
Yay!
Time.
Well, and for me, something that is fun about this, having Lucy on and then having Laura on, and how we all like sort of came together, is like Lucy and I met a couple of years ago when you were in Arcadia, right? Yep. We had talked about that, and like me being from Fort Myers, like I'm originally from Fort Myers, and oh, isn't that interesting? Because that, you know, Arcadia is really close. Oh, isn't that weird? And then Lucy moved her store to Fort Myers. I was like, oh my gosh, my hometown finally has this like indie bookstore. Like, all growing up, we didn't. I mean, we had a couple of used like secondhand bookstores, and we didn't really have an indie bookstore. And then even the Ives, which was in the mall, they closed down. And so we just only had this Barnes and Noble for years and years and years. And here's Lucy. So it's very exciting. Yay. And then Lauren just happened to come into the bookstore, into Blue Cypress Books, when she was vacationing, right? Vacation?
My reading vacation every year. I go to New Orleans and visit my college roommate. And we sit on her couch with her dog and read books for a week.
Which sounds amazing.
Come on, that's amazing. That's what I thought. And then this story alone, I was like, these are good people. This is good people. And then I learned that she co-owns a bookstore in Minneapolis. And I learned that. And I was like, do you want to be on Book Banter? Because I want to talk to you more. So that's the long and the short of it. She's like, yeah, let's do that. And here we are. Yay. I'm genuinely always interested in why a bookstore chooses to sell what it chooses to sell. And I don't mean, I know how a bookstore is curated. Like I like this book, so I order this book, right? But like, why only romance or mostly romance? Why are you choosing second-hand and new, and why specifically genre fiction? Like you're really looking at specific things when you are thinking of what to stock on your shelves in a more specific way, not just the books that you like or the books that are best selling.
Yeah, I mean, I can start with just, so romance. I mean, basically Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities in general, has a really good indie bookstore scene. We have, and the really nice thing, kind of when I started thinking about this several years ago, was we have a lot of general interest bookstores, many of which are wonderful, and then we also actually have a lot of genre bookstores. So there's 2 children's bookstores, one in Minneapolis and one in St. Paul. There's Once Upon a Crime, which is primarily mystery and true crime novels. There are in addition, which is mostly comics and sci-fi and fantasy and things of that realm. And then there's another Uncle Hugo's, which also does science fiction and fantasy. So we're actually kind of in this little triangle of like really good genre-focused bookstores, which we think is fantastic, because people come, customers to each other, and have been doing that, because people come in to one of the general bookstores and they're like, I want dark romance, and they're like, well, we don't carry that. guess where you should go. And the same thing with a lot of the subgenres. Yeah, the subgenres. It's hard. Like, you know, if you have to carry every single book, you know, you have to make room for the cookbooks and the DIY books and the self-help books and all of the nonfiction. And we don't have to do that. So we can carry, you know, in addition to our romanticy section, in addition to, you know, the Sarah J. Maas and the Rebecca Yarros and a lot of the stuff that people have heard of, we're able to carry a lot of kind of the indie published stuff, the weird stuff, the polyamorous dragon shifters, the things that you might not find in a bookstore that has, you know, every book. And so their romance section can only be this big, as opposed to ours, which is this big. So it's been really fun. And the nice thing here is like the indie book selling community has been super helpful. We have, you know, rep nights together. People have, you know, invited us into their group chats. They, you know, when we started doing this, people have been willing to talk finances with us, which is fantastic. And just given a lot of advice. And again, like I said, refer customers. And with Indie Bookstore Day coming up in a couple weeks, you know, we're on the Passport, and there's a Passport program that runs in the Twin Cities, and I believe it's 28 bookstores this year that are participating.
So cool.
Okay, how many do you have to visit to like win or enter or whatever? What is the?
I can't remember. They changed the rules, and honestly, we've been so focused on opening that I saw, I was like, oh, you don't have to go to all 28. And then I was like, I can't read the rest of the rules. I have too many other things to think about. So I know that there are going to be some prizes and stuff that they're going to be announcing in the next couple of weeks in terms of like drawings. And I know I think all the participating stores are throwing in either a gift card, some store merch, possibly some books. It kind of depends on the store. So.
Yeah, we do a similar thing here in New Orleans. There's only 7 bookstores on the Passport, though. So it feels more attainable. But that's like, I knew that you did not have to visit 28. That's just not a possible thing to do. But it is interesting.
We also do it over 5 days.
Okay.
You also get like 5 or 6. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a little bit longer. Saturday is the busiest day. But yeah, like you have, I think it's Wednesday through Sunday.
That's very, very similar to what we do because we're up against Jazz Fest is also that weekend. Oh. And for actually many years, for a few years pre-COVID, we moved our Indie Bookstore Day. So we did not have it on the national holiday. We would hold it 2 Saturdays later, the weekend after Jazz Fest was over, because Jazz Fest lasts 2 weekends here. And then when COVID, and we thought that's like, we had to do that. Like people wouldn't do both. And then COVID happened. And then afterwards we were like, well, let's see. We just actually, if I remember right, I think Jazz Fest got moved again in 2021. I'm pretty sure. Yes, 2021. It got moved. So we had Indie Bookstore Day on the regular day. And it was amazing. And we've had it on the regular day ever since, even though Jazz Fest is now back on those weekends. And for the most part, it doesn't seem to affect the people coming in. But there's one bookstore that's really close to where Jazz Fest is. So we have also extended ours a little bit so that people, like, you can't even park over there. Like, you can't. There's nothing. Like, you'd have to literally like drop someone off, go around the block in the traffic, come back and pick them up. Like, there's not time to shop in there or anything if you wanted just your passport stamped. So we've extended it so that we can get that national press, right? But also that you can actually visit every bookstore. Yeah. So we've had to do a similar thing for completely different reasons, but yes. Completely different. So Lucy, tell me, like, why did you choose, or I guess maybe you and your mom, the combo, choose to specialize in what you do?
So when Mom opened the store, it was predominantly used, which I know in, like, I've heard from Blue Cypress, like, y'all also started like mostly used, and that's just a really great way to get a lot of different books and have like a lower entry point with your opening inventory costs. So that's all fun and great. And also at the time we were in Arcadia, Florida. which is a small town, but like it's very well known for having lots of antique stores and things. So having like a big array of like fun, cool, and different like used books, some of which were like newer, some of which were like very obscure and older, fit that market really well. And then at the time, I was bookselling at Copperfish, like I had mentioned, which has been Used and New their whole journey as well. And so just seeing that in action as a bookseller, and how like being able to offer lots of books at different price points to customers is a really cool thing to be able to do. And so that was always something that I wanted to hold on to. And then but then also like, I mean, I love books and like there are so many new ones that are coming out all the time. So I love being able to offer like the new things that are coming out, and also just like, especially in kind of like looking at genre fiction, like there's so many great things that are just like popping up all the time, but then also some great stuff from the backlist that like may be like a couple of years old, like in book selling years, but like it's new to somebody else, and that's beautiful. Like one of my favorite hand sells is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, and I have been like throwing that at readers for years, and it like makes me so excited that I can still throw it at people, and they're like, I've never seen this. I'm like, oh, that's so great for you. It's gonna be a great time. So I love that. And then when I was thinking about how I would want to curate my store, a big part of it was just I'm a romance girly at heart, and so then of course like fantasy is very connected to that, and so is like horror and sci-fi. So those are kind of all the genres I have lived in and found a lot of joy in my whole life, and that's where kind of like my knowledge base is more rooted in. But then also in recent years, I've started listening to audiobooks, and like specifically kind of like quirky history stuff, or like female celebrity memoirs. So kind of being able to pull those pieces in too felt really important to me. So the idea of kind of like what we focus and what we curate is stories that seek to ensure everyone can feel seen and valued. And that's also why I really value romance, because the whole point is joy. So like we are seeing stories from a variety of different perspectives and like experiences in life and background of people, but like with the whole point of it being a happy story. Even in like, you got your dark romance, you got your things, but like the whole idea is like at the end, like they are at least like the characters you're following are gonna be okay. And like that was really important to me, and has been something throughout my life that has helped me cultivate so much like empathy and curiosity, and I wanted to hold on to that. And then also I am just very interested in different forms of like spirituality and kind of like the more like how do you care for yourself in a holistic sense, like from like really like cool and grounded self-help, things that are like catering to the witch that resides in many of us. So that was also an important piece to me too. And that was the piece I was honestly the most worried about living in Florida. And but it has been something that people have been so excited to see, and like it makes them feel very seen and heard, especially kind of like in our neck of the swamp, as I like to say. So all of it has just like come together and meshed really well. And then I try to bring those principles into when I'm looking at genres that aren't necessarily in my super wheelhouse. So like when we're looking at general fiction or historical fiction, like how can it fall into those pieces, like highlighting diverse stories, especially stories about and by queer people and people of color, and also like very feminist stories, like pulling those into those pieces. And it's all vibing really well and working really well. But yeah, Lauren made a really good point about like the space that you can allot to things. Cause like I just shifted a couple of our things, cause like romance had to get bigger because I love romance so much, but a lot of the subgenre stuff, I always get very like, okay, should it live in romance or should it live in fantasy or should it live in sci-fi? Like, where does it vibe best? And so romance just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But like, that's like a really beautiful and cool thing. And then also like the store can like grow and change and kind of ebb based on what people are responding to and like what people are asking to see. like I recently have been reading more horror in my life. I've always been a horror girly, but for a very long time, I thought I was having a hard time finding books that really spoke to me. But I think in the last like 5 to 10 years specifically, a lot of really cool things have been coming out. And so like I've been curating that section. It was smaller, and like it just every time I grow it, it keeps like people just keep snatching all this stuff up, and I'm like, okay, it needs to get bigger. And so like that's super exciting to see. So yeah, so that's kind of how I have decided on how to curate, is like a little bit of like what I'm comfortable with and what I like am excited to sell. Like that's a big piece, because I think that is what, like when we're looking at stores, like when they are very sure in their identity and who they want to be in the store, and then also how they interact with the community and what they have on their shelves. If you have a clear picture of that, I think that is like, those are the stores that people really get excited to be in and excited to like participate in and engage with. And so that's what I just like try really hard to bring. And then like I just get so excited when I see other people like Blue Cypress. When I visited y'all for the first time, I was so excited because I've been stalking you on social media for a very long time. And I was like, I feel like I've been here, and I feel like I've met the people here, even though I've never set foot in New Orleans ever. And this is my first time in the shop. So like, I think that is such a beautiful and unique thing. And that is kind of the vibe I'm hoping to bring into my shop. So
yeah, I think people can tell, and no matter what, we're sitting here, we own and work in bookstores for many, many years. We clearly love books. Like we could probably talk about any genre if we had to, right? But like you can tell the difference when you're talking about something you love, whether that's a specific title or a genre that you can really like, you feel like passionate about. People can feel that passion that you have. And so that's kind of like where you are. Like you could be selling some other genre of book that you don't necessarily read a lot of, and you could talk about that, and that would be cool. But there's a difference when you become passionate about it, and that vibe and that passion about it, people can tell. People can tell if you read this book or not. Like they know. Like you can be real good at your job. You might still sell it, but there's you feel it when you loved it or when you really read it. So that's So we have a question. I think this question is more geared toward Lauren, but it would be interesting to hear Lucy's answer as well. Elise Blackburn says, congrats on opening. About how many books will your store have when you start?
Oh gosh. It's a really good question because I'm working on those orders still. We did a really big order of we did our initial orders. We'd been ordering from Ingram, doing our pop-ups and stuff, which I know a lot of folks do sometimes and continue to do exclusively Ingram, for a long time. And we started with Ingram, and now we have accounts set up with a handful of publishers. And we just actually finally started shelving our books, and then we started putting them on the shelves, and we were like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough books. Luckily we're under budget on inventory. So thank goodness, because we knew that we were going to be under, but we kind of wanted to see, once things are on the shelf, like, okay, like, does it look like fantasy's a little bit light? Does it look like, okay, we actually realized we're like, actually nonfiction, we have a very small nonfiction section that's very heavily curated. Like, we actually might need a little bit more in that section. Contemporaries, honestly, fine. that was easier ones because there's so many books. And so we're hoping that we're going to have around probably 4,500 or so books at copies on the shelf when we open. Again, some of that's a bit of a moving target because we started ordering some of the nice initial discounts, let you order books all the way through the end of the year. And so I'm like, I actually don't know how many we ordered that are going to be here in the store when we open, because I ordered a bunch of books for October. So it's a bit of a moving target, but yeah, we're thinking around 4,500. When we had done our pop-up in this space, we had half this floor space. We had about 500 square feet of selling space. Right now we knocked a wall down and made some changes. And so now we're closer to 800 square feet of sales floor. And we had been having around 1,200 books at our pop-ups. And we basically were like, we have to quadruple that. in order to be one, to fill the space, and also honestly to meet demand, because there were books that we were hand selling during the holiday season, and we keep joking. We're like, we could have sold even more of that book, but we kept running out. And then of course, around the holidays, it's harder. It can be a little trickier to get stuff in because everybody's looking to like plus up on books and everything, because like everybody's selling out of stuff because it's the holidays. We were laughing. There was one book that I forgot to order, and so it was going on the list of the order we're doing tomorrow morning, called The Marvelous Light by Freya Marski. And we ran out. Like, I can't remember if it was just before Christmas or just after Christmas. And so I was looking, I sent someone who was looking for that book to a different bookstore. And somebody else came in, and I was like, you know what? I can't send you to the other bookstore I would, because I went in and bought their last copy last night. Book, and I couldn't get it in myself. So I was like, well, that book is doing fantastic in our store. And you can tell because like we can't keep it on the shelf. So really, like, basically all you have to tell folks, especially in Minneapolis, is like, oh yeah, it's just a book series full of messy bisexuals and they do magic, and done.
We're not done.
So yeah. Anyway, that was a very long-winded way of saying hopefully 4,500 bucks.
Well, so Lucy, you all started secondhand, so I don't know if that number is easier or harder to know.
I like my best estimate. I think that we are around, I would say 500 to 600 titles, and then that's like including new and used, and that's like different title. That's actually probably high. It's probably around 500 like individual titles, and then we will go like deeper or shallower on those, because similarly, so we have kind of an odd space, the place we moved into in Fort Myers, because yes, retail spaces are hard to find, and so we found one that was in the like historic downtown corridor of Fort Myers. It's a little bit more artsy, and it's a little bit more queer, and we were like, this is where we need to be. And so we found something. But the space, it used to be an office space, and so it's kind of laid out a bit interestingly. And when we saw it, it was after it had been devastated by Hurricane Ian, as was our original shop in Arcadia, Florida. And so they hadn't like finished construction on it, and they were like, okay, so we can like leave it as it is, and then you can get possession sooner and it will be cheaper, or you can like pay to knock down walls and stuff, but they have to go back up when you leave. And we were like, you know what, like we don't want to we're not sure, because like we were moving cities, and like at the time we thought we were gonna go pop up into Fort Myers. So then this just kind of like came on the radar, and we were like, okay, we want to give it a try, we want to see how it is, but also we don't want to commit to like more construction costs, especially since we effectively opened the bookstore twice last year, because we reopened after Hurricane Ian and then moved it to another city. Don't recommend doing that. Try to keep it to one if you can. But
know where you're going to be.
Yeah,
when you
just try to be like, this is fine. I mean, it all works out, but like life is interesting that way, where things that like happen after a couple of months, you're like, wow, I never thought, but this is so great. But so our main like selling bookstore space in the front is around like 500 square feet. And then we do have like some back rooms, but right now they are being used for storage, and then also our antique and vintage home goods space. So they don't have books in there. So yeah, so it's like, and I think spacing is also interesting, because the bookstore I previously worked at, Copperfish Books, I would say probably has a selling space around what Lauren was talking about. And from like kind of just my knowledge of what we were putting away and things, would have had about that amount of books and titles in stock. So it's always so interesting to see how people organize their space and what they do with like their room, because some people they curate in the sense where it's like, we'll do less titles, but we have a ton of them, or like we don't go very, like I know lots of bookstores who are like, we don't go very deep, we try to have lots to offer. And so like I think we try to live kind of somewhere in the middle with our space, but yeah, and it's always exciting.
Yeah, that's the thing I've actually found. We found about romance readers in particular. It's, you want to read the book at the same time as all your friends, whether
Yes.
it's your in-person friends, your book club friends, or your TikTok friends.
Mhm.
And so, we were chatting to other booksellers in the area, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like we order one copy, maybe like 5 copies if it's something we're super excited about." And I was like, we straight up ordered 10 copies of this book that came out the day right after Thanksgiving, and we had sold out in 2 days. It was Consort of Fire by Kit Roca. We are big fans, Dragons, obviously. And we ended up selling 80 copies of that in 2 months, or just a month, because it came out right after Christmas or right after Thanksgiving. So like the books, and part of it was, people would come in and they're like, okay, I've read ACOTAR, I've read Fourth Wing, like I want more dragons. And we're like, what about sex with dragons?
Have you thought about it?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on adding a little sex in? Are you in? Okay, I'm all these.
Let's do it. So similar to my pitch for Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert. I'm like, how do you feel about the dragon? No.
Oh yeah, we did that one. That one goes well here too.
Them, but in a different way.
Yeah.
What are we thinking? And I think
I love the gateway. Oh no! Oh, I'm just saying, like, I love. There are certain books that we can use as like a gateway, right? And then once you say you like that one, now I've like, look at all these that I have for you. But like that first one is like, how you got to feel them out. You got to really like feel out where they are living, and then you're like, you know what? I think you can handle this. Take this and then come back to me. We do the
same. We do the same with like, people are like, oh, I read like all of Allie Hazelwood. And we're like, okay, what if she has Bride now. So but before Bride came out, we were like, okay, but what if Allie Hazelwood, but they're werewolves? And so then we were like, oh, Lana Ferguson, Fake Mate. We were like, that's a perfect one. Or, we're like, what if, okay, you like reading contemporary, like medical stuff. Okay. I actually have one that came out, I think last week. Elizabeth Everett, The Love Remedy.
Oh yeah.
With a pharmacist who does a lot, who does abortion, abortion services amongst her many other pharmacist stuff. I don't know what pharmacists do, except for romance. So, and she does it in historical times. And so, we have books like that. And then, oh, you read this, like, what if you read that, but it was queer? Which is a really big, and again, does very well on the Twin Cities. And so, we kind of do it that way of like, okay, yes, you read this book that you found probably at Target in the romance section, because they have a lot now. And it's, that was, but they of course have a narrow selection. And so, they have the books that, are really big on TikTok, and we're like, okay, well, you read all the TikTok books, like, we have them too. And then we also have these others.
And I think that's why, like, when you're talking about like, okay, if you like this, well, what about this? But it's like just a little bit different. One of my favorite things to ask people when they're like, because like a lot of people come in and they'll be like, well, what was the last great book you read? Or like, what are you enjoying? And I'm like, okay, that's a different question based on what you're looking for. So I try to turn that back around and be like, well, okay, what was the last thing you read? Or like if they prompt me like, oh, I just read Fourth Wing. And I'm like, okay, what did you like about it? Because my recs change depending on what you say. Yeah. And so like, I love that piece because it feels like you can really dig in and like really have a cool conversation with people about like why they're liking the books that they do. And then like what they're looking for kind of as the next thing. It's probably the English major in me that's like, yeah, let's like get in there. Let's do a close reading of all these things. What you like?
Let's put it all out on the table. Let's a little therapy, a little English major, a little like let's do it. Right. How does it make you feel? We do have a question.
I mean, we think of it as
Elise asked
like, oh, sorry.
No.
No, go ahead.
Well, this kind of goes along with what we're talking about. So I'll go ahead and ask the question, and then we can work that in to what you were going to say. The question is, do you ever use, if you liked blank, read blank, on written recommendations, or only when you're talking to customers or chatting with customers?
We do both. One of the things we started doing very early, because again, like there's a lot of romance and people come in and they're like, have you read every book in the store? And I'm like, there are not enough out. Like, no, impossible. I have read this many books of this many books. I'm never going to have time to read them all. So one of the things we did was we write shelf talkers of like, you know, our recommendations. And then we also have blank shelf talkers that anyone can come in the store and they can write them, because we're like, look, like for one, not every book is for everyone, because there are plenty of books in the store that I'm sure are great books. And I'm like, I'm never going to read this. It's not my trope. I don't like this trope. And so like, it's not going to be for me. I'm not going to I'm not going to recommend A Secret Baby. I'm sorry. I don't love it. There are people who love it. And so I'm like, well, if you have this Secret Baby book that you love, or this dark romance book that you love, or something else that's not my jam, I want you to be able to, you know, I want the other people who love that book to be able to find it. And they're not going to find it for me as easily. So the people who have read these books can write basically can scream about why they love this book in written form and do that. Because like one of the things we think about is, you know, if you want a recommendation, like let's say you have read Fourth Wing and you want a recommendation of whatever the algorithm thinks is closest to Fourth Wing, like the algorithm exists and you can find that. But the algorithm doesn't know what did you like about that book? Why did you like it? What did you not like about that book? And the algorithm can't tell you, okay, well, you know, I read this book and I loved it and I loved the writing style, but it didn't have enough world building, or I really, you know, and one of the things actually that for me personally is a thing is I have a hard time with dialogue. If the dialogue is a little too stilted, it doesn't matter like how great the rest of the book is, how great the premise is, how much I love the trope, I'm not going to be able to read it. But for some people, dialogue, they have no problem. They're like, oh yeah, I can read, like, it doesn't matter what the dialogue's like, as long as the story is good. So that's kind of having that conversation with people who are looking for recommendations, but also again, like having something written down. There are books where we're like, I think for one of Consort of Fire, actually, we had someone wrote, or Caitlin, my partner, wrote on her shelf talker. She was like, love ACOTAR, read this. Hate ACOTAR, read this. Like, you know, it kind of has something for everybody in there. And, you know, and that's been really helpful to find out like, okay, what is it that you actually loved? Because again, you know, there's so many things that you can love about a book, or it can be a turnoff, and it's so individual to like kind of everybody. Absolutely.
Rachel says that it is so fun writing feral shelf talkers for you.
Oh my gosh, she has so many. They are completely unhinged.
Those are the good ones. Again, we were talking about passion earlier, right? You could be like, this is good. You should read it. No one's going to read that, but you get in there. She's getting in there and giving the good stuff. That those people are going to respond.
Yes, we love hers. Thank you, Rachel.
So we're coming close to the end of Book Banter, but couldn't each of us just recommend either a book that we're loving right now, or a book we're reading right now, or a book where we want to recommend? Everybody gets one because we're close. So what you got? Lucy, what you got?
Oh, me first.
You first. Well, Lauren was just talking. I mean, I can go first. I'll go first. Okay. I'll go first. Then everybody gets to think about it. Think about it for a minute. Because I have mine just sitting right here. I knew I was going to ask that question. So I'll Give You a Reason by Anel Lopez comes out 2 Tuesdays from now, the 9th. It comes out on the 9th. was completely blanking on the date, but it comes out on the 9th. So you can pre-order it from all of us now. I'll put links down there to all of our bookstores at the end, so everybody can get one. It is stories. Annelle is local to New Orleans, and she's originally from the Dominican Republic and then up through New York, Jersey. Don't hold me. I don't know which one. Jersey, I think. And now in New Orleans. It's fun. She'll forgive me. And these are short stories, and I absolutely loved every one of them, and y'all should check it out. All right, now Lucy.
Okay. Oh no, but there's so many. Okay, so I'm going to give my kind of like book that I feel very unhinged about and will be throwing at everybody I possibly can. It is I Shouldn't Be Telling You This by Chelsea Devantez. It is coming out in June. I believe it's June 4th. I was trying to check. But it is a memoir by a comedian, TV writer, and podcast host, Chelsea Devantez. She hosts this podcast called Glamorous Trash, which I am completely feral for. She recaps and like talks about with her guests female celebrity memoirs, and her big ethos for the podcast is that she wants to take this thing that so many people deride as being like silly or not having value, and like finding the value in it, and specifically the value in when we tell our own stories and share our own truths, and like how that can kind of like be very big and very cool. And especially for people who are women, or from people of color, or just like an intersection of all of those things, queer people. And like, it's so good. And her podcast is a fantastic listen. I highly recommend it. But her memoir is a story about living through horrific trauma and coming out the other side, and like what that looks like. She has some great quotes in the beginning about like, it's not like a get over, it is you become irrevocably shaped by the things that happen to you and that you experience. And like, they make you who you are, but also like the act of coming out the other side is work and is a journey in and of itself. And then like and she talks about like, I wonder who I would have been if that hadn't happened to me at that point in my life. But like, also, I am very proud of who I am now. And I think that that's like such a great way of looking at the hard things that we go through. But it's also a hilarious and funny book. And it's very nuanced in the way that she tells stories about people. And like, I hope that I can look at some people in my life with grace in the way that she does, where like, she's had these experiences with people who have shaped her and who like meant a lot to her, but also did some not great things, or like some things that later she's like, oh, maybe that wasn't great, when she's like talking about it in therapy. And so I love it. I think it's so good. And it's her debut memoir. So I'm just like want everybody to read it and pre-order it. And I'm very excited. So
Yay.
I'm going to go kind of in the other direction and recommend a backlist title. So as a romance bookstore, in addition, obviously, to all of the hardcovers and trade paperbacks you can see behind me, we do carry a pretty significant selection of mass markets. I love mass markets. That's where I started when I was reading romance. I started with, my historicals. And so I think it's a really, that's kind of where probably many people who started reading romance, if you started reading it kind of before Book Talk, that's probably where you started. And I'm here to say, like, there's still fantastic mass markets out there. And, you definitely should read them. And actually the book that I'm going to recommend came out in 2020. So it is actually a pre-pandemic book, which I will say, reading romance, a lot of the books that are coming out right now were written or edited during the pandemic, and it has led to a lot of really good and interesting trends in romance. But there are some interesting trends that you can see of stuff pre-pandemic. A lot of books about grief right now, which they're good, and a lot of books about found family, which is fantastic. And actually, this is a book that has both of those things, but again, written before the pandemic. It also has the best trope. I'm going to say the best trope is road trip, because road trip, you always get an only one bed, and
Okay.
guaranteed only one bed situation. In this case, it's actually only one bed and only one bedroll. Doesn't even have actually. It's basically only one fur cape.
What are you gonna
So
do?
it's this book.
Oh, I know.
We were talking
ready.
about this before.
Let's do it.
The chest. So this book is by Millavane. It's the first in a series. The first two are out. The third one, I don't know what's happening with it. It was supposed to come out last year and it hasn't. And my Harper's rep has not told me what's happening. But it's called Heart of Blood and Ashes. This is an enemies to lovers road trip. It is enemies as in like when they first meet, they are both planning on they basically want to kill each other for reasons of vengeance. And the hero in this is actually like, I need to kill her. And then he's like, but if I marry her, I can have more vengeance. So
excellent plan.
Yes. So they get into this political marriage. I will say this is kind of like Dothraki fanfic if you were a Game of Thrones person and you were like, what if the Dothraki but not rapey? So there is like, this book is barbarian smut. It is quite dark. It does have some, like, definitely check your content warnings on this one. If you were to come in the store, I could tell you what they are. The author also has them listed on her website, which is fantastic. Because there is a lot of like warfare, a lot of, there is sexual assault that happens off page, not to either of the main characters and not done by either of the main characters, which I think can really be important to a lot of people. But there is violence that happens around them that is integral to the story happening. And so, yeah, they go on a road trip. Always a good time. There's basically dinosaurs in this book. There's zombies. There's there's other barbarians. There is only one bed, only one fur cape. There is a scene that made me cry with a horse. There are like, it is bananas. There's zombie rabies, basically. Like if you get touched by one of the zombies, you get it too, and you basically get rabies. And so, yeah, it's a great time. And I bought extra copies of the second book because I need to buy one for myself because I need to read it. So
love it.
So
I'm going to be the crossover potential is so great with that book. You're like, and it has this, and it has that, and it says this other thing. And you're like, so anyone walks in, and they're like, yeah, well, I read this zombie book. Let's go. I got you. Here it is. Like, I can fit anything into that book. I love it. All right. So I put links to all three books that we recommended in the comments to each of our bookstores. So that link will also take you to each of our bookstores based on that one recommendation that we each gave. This comment that's about to post also has links to all of our bookstores. So go visit Lucy's website. Go visit Lucy's bookstore, Blinking Owl Books in Fort Myers. Go visit Lauren's website. Go visit Lauren's bookstore in Minneapolis, Tropes and Trifles. Do it. You talking about road trips, like anytime I'm visiting anywhere, I am always looking up the bookstore. You should too. Not only are they great places to find great book recommendations, obviously, but booksellers are great for all kinds of recommendations. You're looking for good coffee, you're looking for a good restaurant, you're looking for a good park. I used to, when I was traveling with my son when he was very little, I would go to the bookstore and I would buy a book and I would ask them where's the best park to actually take my 3-year-old to play. Not, tell me. And they will tell you, they'll be like, let me give you don't go to that one right in the town square. Go over here, and they're like, yes, this is what I was looking for. Thank you. We always have great recommendations for not just books, but for anything you're looking for. So stop in, see your favorite local bookstore, see Lucy, see Lauren, come see us at Blue Cypress next time you're in New Orleans. And y'all, thank you so much for joining me for Book Banter. This has been so much fun talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all. Thanks everybody for watching. I see you out there. Thank you for commenting. Y'all have a good night. Bye.
You too.